I'm getting excited, baby. I know the last video said it's exciting to be a Habs fan, but it's also exciting to be a Canucks fan. And especially now, at the beginning of September, we are starting to see more articles, more radio hits, more interviews, and everything in between. It's best for business, everybody's getting hyped up, everybody's consuming the content, and it's also great for me because I have stuff to talk about now. Yeah, right? We don't have to keep on pulling topics out of midair and talking about hypothetical trade ideas, although I do want to go out there and explore one of those in another video later today. We can double dip with Canucks content, right? We do it with the Habs all the time. Why not do it with the Canucks as well? Let's go out there, though, in this video and read an article published on sportsnet.ca by Ian McIntyre. Big shout out over to iMac because back in the driver's seat of Vancouver Canucks triple threat content creation, Ian McIntyre went out there and interviewed Jim Rutherford. The article was from earlier this afternoon. Canucks Rutherford talks goaltending, higher expectations ahead of the season, and I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go ahead and read this yourself. Now, the article is so new, so I really recommend you to go out there and give Sportsnet their ad views. Go ahead and read this entire thing yourself. I wanted to just dive into the Rutherford quotes because, you know, just kind of reading and reacting to what the Canucks executives have to say kind of gives us a bigger picture as to where their mindsets are at and what the expectations seem to be for the Vancouver Canucks heading into the 24-25 season. In fact, Ian McIntyre goes out there and starts the interview by talking about how Rutherford said the Vancouver Canucks are stronger now than they were before last season's 109-point breakthrough. And I would have to agree. We've been saying this the entire summer, but the forward core, between where this team's core was at this year versus where it was at 1 year ago, it's a lot deeper this season. They have a lot more depth scoring. They have a lot more consistency. They have a lot more defensive responsibility. They have a lot better guys. The D-core, you could say, was better last year, especially with the early addition of Nikita Zadorov, but there still is some growth potential to be had with the guys that are on the team right now, and it's why, you know, I think the common consensus is if the Vancouver Canucks got one more bona fide top four defenseman, they would be absolutely set. I mean, goaltending also plays a part in it as well. No disrespect to Casey DeSmith, he was fine in Vancouver. Arturs Silovs, though, he's got a lot of potential, and I think a lot of people are excited to see what he can do. Thatcher Demko's coming off the heels of a Vezina-nominated season, so he's got to have some momentum in this upcoming training camp as well. Of course, though, assuming he plays. iMac even talks about in this article how Rutherford would probably be, you know, more confident if Demko and Silovs were not coming back from injuries, if it was guaranteed that they'd be okay. Rutherford, though, confirmed in a Tuesday interview with Sportsnet that the Vancouver Canucks star goalie and promising projected backup are still working their way towards full fitness as players return to Vancouver this week for informal practices ahead of the opening training camp in Penticton on September 19th. As you know, I don't talk directly about potential injuries or the perception of where players are at health-wise, Rutherford said. I feel good about our goaltending. Where that is for the start of training camp and the start of the season, I don't know myself right now. We haven't even done physicals yet, but I do know our goalies are working hard and working towards being ready for the start of the season. As an organization, that's what we're hoping for. Now, I get that you can say that's not like the biggest and most direct confirmation that they're going to be okay. In fact, it says straight up, Rutherford doesn't know if they're going to be okay. But that's fine, especially when you consider the updates we had lately. Rick Dhaliwal said yesterday that Demko is actually skating now, which is really great to hear. A big divergence from what we had come to learn over different parts of the offseason. Oh, if he's not going to be an option for preseason even, maybe that's going to bleed into the start of the regular season, and if he doesn't really get any training underway before then, it might be a while before we see Thatcher Demko actually suit up. And while I will say that just because he's skating, just because he's on the ice, it doesn't guarantee that he'll be available for the preseason or whatever, even Rutherford is saying it's uncertain, it's better to hear these updates that he is progressing than to hear the updates that he's going backwards, like we had heard from earlier this summer. We thought he was going to be available for the third round. But then it was like, no, he's not going to be available for the preseason. That's going backwards. And for Arturs Silovs, same thing. If the Latvian hockey staff are confident he'll be available for Canucks camp, then okay, let's just do our best to trust their judgment here. Either way, Rutherford does provide a pretty positively minded update in regards to the Canucks and their goaltending, and that carries over into all the other conversations he has as well. We look every day at every position, Rutherford said. We don't just sit around and think we're all set. So we're aware that potentially we may have to take a goalie off of waivers in order to fill a gap for a little bit. The good news for us is that we are in a position that we can do that cap-wise, but we would prefer to stay out of LTIR to start the season. That's important for us, and we're pretty sure we can do that. A PTO could be an option. Now this is what we had talked about in the video yesterday as well, how the Vancouver Canucks do not want to go into Tucker Poolman's LTIR dollar amount to start out the year, because the longer you have your salary cap set below the maximum limit and you don't need to go into above the cap limit LTIR territory, that extra space you have day by day adds up over time, and it allows you to spend more by the time the trade deadline rolls around because you would have accrued so much extra space from the days that you were under the cap limit. Rutherford saying here that the Canucks could go out there and get a PTO is intriguing. Ian McIntyre writes here that Antti Ranta could be an option. There also were the reports linking the Canucks to Kevin Lankinen. These are similar conversations that we have had already. Either way, Jim Rutherford does go out there and say that he is not really surprised by anything that has happened with the Canucks goalies. Regardless of how much work is done in the offseason, there's always something to deal with, he said, and of course, the people in hockey operations have to stay on top of it and try to stay ahead of the curve. I mean, if a player gets injured, working out, or in Silovs' case, getting ready to play for his country, I can't say that's a surprise. That's just the way life works for an athlete. But I can say that both of our goalies are working hard and doing what they can right now to get ready. That's enough about the goaltending conversation. I mean, look, it's good to see Rutherford's perspective on it. He's not sugarcoating anything. He's not going out there and saying, yeah, they'll be ready. We're good. It's fine. He's saying, yeah, we don't know if they're going to be fine, but we're feeling good about it. And I think that's a lot better than the way Vancouver Canucks fans have been treated in the past with their media interviews from the executives. Jim Benning was always sunshines and rainbows. We take it day by day. We ran out of time to sign Tyler Toffoli, and we have a good team. We're confident we can compete, and then they don't, and then they trade for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and it screws them over cap-wise, and then OEL gets bought out and he wins a Stanley Cup. How crazy is that? Either way, there are some other comments here that Rutherford made that I wanted to dive into in this video as well. He talks about the forward core. We have more depth and more balance in our forward lines, Rutherford said. I believe that that position could be pretty competitive in camp when you look at some of the younger guys we have coming from the AHL that are either ready or are very close to playing in the NHL. And I can say the same thing about our defense from where we were a year ago. And that's true too. I mean, I don't want to guarantee anything, but it seems like Jonathan Lekkerimäki could be in a spot where he maybe challenges for a roster opportunity. There are some other guys that you could say might be on the cusp there. Aatu Räty, Linus Karlsson, Arshdeep Bains. It's not guaranteed, of course, especially in, like, Bain's case, for example, but if a guy like Lekkerimäki has 6 goals in 7 preseason games or whatever, then the Vancouver Canucks are going to have no choice. They're going to be able to put this guy in the lineup and be like, hey, here's a power play spot in the second unit. We'll give you 9 games, and then if you're not good, then we'll send you back down. There are opportunities here for a lot of forwards to break out, which also coagulate with all the other forwards the Canucks have. They've got a full cast of 12 guys, and that did not even include Phil DiGiuseppe, Vasily Podkolzin, and Niels Åman. That's why they traded Podkolzin away. There just simply wasn't enough room. Lots of bodies, though, breeds more competition, so hopefully we'll see the best out of these players heading into training camp and preseason. And of course, Rutherford says our goaltending is good with Demko and Silovs, so I would say more depth and more balance throughout the lineup, but especially the forward group. Rutherford then talks about the Canucks' mindset. Don't veer off from what we did as a team. The expectations are higher now. How do players deal with that? I would suggest that everybody learn from last season and know what it takes to take that next step. This team is certainly in a much stronger position because these players have learned to play the Rick Tocchet style and have bought into it and played well. And we learn from experience with what went through last year. You put all that together and you stay focused and you prepare to take another step. Rutherford says here to end things off, I'm excited and I base my excitement on little bits I hear back from players in the offseason. From the coaching staff, from hockey ops and ownership, that's how I judge my excitement at this point in my career. I've been doing this a long time. So yes, based on those things, I'm very excited. We are all excited. The rest of the article, which has got a lot more analysis from Ian McIntyre, will be linked in the description. Go ahead and read it yourself. It's a very, very good read. But for now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Rutherford and his comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.